Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. This is my prediction for the biggest hyped up fight that probably isn't going to really lead anywhere down the road, because Conor McGregor is probably going to go back down to featherweight, and then Nate Diaz is going to work on his lightweight run. So who do I think is going to win? There's a lot of factors coming into this fight, just like the first one. A bit of a different factor, different things you have to wonder. For the record, the last fight, I thought Conor was going to win because of how short of a notice Nate Diaz had. But that's the reason why I thought he was going to win, because Nate Diaz, 11 days, that's extremely hard to do. But then we noticed that going up and fighting Nate Diaz, who is a fighter that's naturally bigger than you, was probably, and really skilled too, is just as big as the difference. When it comes to size matters only when the skill set is that close to each other. Or, you know, when you're fighting in the UFC, size matters because of the skill level of these guys. So when it comes to like outside brawls, if you're like a skilled guy and you're smaller than the guy who's a lot bigger than you, but he doesn't have any skill, you're probably going to kick his ass. But in the UFC, size does matter. So in this fight, first thing I want to go over with Conor and Nate is the striking. The striking, there's a lot of element. They're both great strikers in their own right, but they have really different styles. Conor McGregor, his stance, the way he tries to fight you, and his stance, the way he has his hands a little low, stand up straight. He has it's a mixture between karate and like a taekwondo stance, the way he does those kicks, his punches. But the way his punches are, you can tell he has some kind of boxing background, which I did do some digging. Conor McGregor was an amateur boxing champion back in Ireland. So his hands are, obviously we know his hands are pretty damn good. We've always known that's what Conor's strength is his striking and his power. But that's how it was back in featherweight. When he was fighting against guys who were smaller than him, at least 2 inches smaller than him. And he was able to use his reach, or he can keep a guy's at a distance, use his balance, his dancing around, and use a lot of his strong one too. He's got good kicks. They're kind of flashy, and they do land pretty good. They're good kicks, but what his main power is that left hand. His left hand is a killer left hand. He's got a lot of power, great striking, kicks. But the thing is, in my opinion, the reason why I thought Conor might win the first time is because I was really expecting him to kick Nate Diaz's legs, which is one of Nate Diaz's weaknesses, but he didn't do that at all. He was trying to do these flashy spinning kicks, which missed a lot and caused him to lose a lot of stamina, which in fault was part of his downfall, other than him being rocked. In my opinion, I think that if Conor really wants to win this fight against Nate Diaz, he's going to have to use those leg kicks. Kind of tone it down, go with the same velocity, but use more basics. Kind of fight like more Dos Anjos, Jose Aldo style. We know he's his punches, he's going to stay with the same kind of punches. But with his kicks, he needs to adjust his kicks where he's not trying to do these spinning heel kicks at Nate Diaz's face when he's 2 to 3 inches taller than him and miss completely. If he goes after the legs, if he changes his target at Nate, I think he will help his chances greatly. Because in the first match, I felt he kind of got a little too aggressive and was a little wild. It felt like he wanted to take Nate Diaz's head out in the first round, which I thought was really stupid. I was expecting him to be a little more calculated with his jab and use more of his leg kick, because the way he fights, he's used to fighting wrestlers or guys who are kind of shorter than him, and he's used to keeping his distance and used to using his long reach. He's used to using his long arms against smaller fighters. But against Nate Diaz, he's a taller fighter with the longer reach. And I also think maybe Conor might have to keep his hands up a little higher, because Nate has a killer jab that could reach Conor's chin in a second. Keeping his hands down, I think, is going to be a bad idea if he does that again. I think Conor should make a couple of adjustments, because he's going to have to against Nate. He admitted in his first fight he doesn't really fight for anyone's style, which I think is kind of maybe a cop-out to say that, because you have to be able to adapt like this in the UFC. But that's how Conor's style is. He tries to mix in with taekwondo, karate type style, but he does have a boxing background. He's got excellent power, good timing, and a lot of the thing is that he uses his power as an advantage when he's fighting against smaller guys. I'm not so sure if his power is going to translate to Nate Diaz. Now, when it comes to Nate Diaz, his style is a lot more simpler when it comes to striking. It's a basic hands a little lower, use your shoulder to block. It's a very traditional boxing style. He even has his lead leg out, way out, which is one of his weaknesses in the striking department, is having his lead leg out there. I think if he like switches up his stance, which he did a couple times in the first match, in the beginning of the first fight, Nate comes out and he switches his stance a couple times. Like, oh, that was interesting. Now, as far as with the boxing, Nate it's a very basic style of boxing, and it works so well in the UFC because he is so long, so tall, and so fluid. His jab is really quick and really snappy out there. It's just a simple 1-2, and he doesn't try to use too much power. He's more of an accurate type puncher, which I think is really great for him keeping his stamina in. He's really good. He's able to save his energy by not going balls to the walls, always swinging in just one punch like many of these UFC fighters try to do. And it works really well against Conor because Conor's a lot shorter than him. He's able to throw that jab out, hit the chin, and get out of the way because he's so tall. If you watch the first round over again, yeah, Conor landed some pretty good punches, but he was also missing a lot. The accuracy was belonging to Nate Diaz. Just a quick jab, 1-2, and Conor was swinging for the fences, which I thought was really stupid, but Nate was really efficient. He was really efficient with his striking. And according to Nate Diaz, he did that because he had to conserve energy because he didn't have a camp. Now, as far as the kicking department goes in the striking, you got to give it to Conor because Nate's not known for his kicks. He just doesn't really throw them too often. They don't even look pretty at all. You don't have to look pretty to be a good kicker, but there's like no... They don't look like they don't have that much strength in them. You have to give that bait to Conor because he does throw them a lot. He uses it to fake his fighters. It's used for him to land that powerful left hand. And Nate, he understands that. He definitely knows that Conor's going to be coming in with that left hand. He's going to watch his kicks, but he's going to keep an eye on that left hand. So as far as the striking advantage, you know, I think I'll give it to Conor. Just barely, though. Just barely. A lot of people probably say Nate Diaz has a striking department, but I think Conor has a more variety if we go just by striking and itself. So I'll give that to Conor, but it's just barely. Now, as far as grappling goes, Nate Diaz, definitely. Now, Conor, he's got a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Nate Diaz has a Gracie black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but they're like in different ballparks. Nate... His jiu-jitsu has been around. He's mastered his his Brazilian jiu-jitsu a lot longer than Conor has, and it's great practice. He's shown great practice on tape in the MMA world, in the UFC. You know, it's another thing to tap guys out on the mat. But it's another thing to do it in the UFC when you guys when you're going against guys who are all black belts in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, who all know how to defend these type of submissions. And Nate Diaz is a killer with his guillotine, his triangle choke, his arm choke. He's really good at suffocating his opponents. All chokes, man, they're good. He's good at all submissions, but he's really fond of the guillotine and the rear naked choke. Conor, all of his losses are by submission. Even though he has a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's not going against some scrub out on the street where he's going to tap him out like nothing. This is Nate Diaz. Nate is another ballpark when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's how great Nate is. The Diaz brothers have been known for that. It's their bread and butter. No matter how good their boxing is, their strength is their Jiu-Jitsu. And you have to give that to Nate Diaz just based off of their first fight, for crying out loud. They got onto the mat and Conor was tired. And he didn't look like he belonged in there on the mat with Nate Diaz. In the first round he did, but in the second round he was tired. And Nate took advantage of that, and it showed like they were just in different leagues. Nate looked like he was his master, and he was a student that was learning from him, and he tapped out pretty damn fast. Nate Diaz, ground game, grappling, no doubt about it. As far as wrestling goes, I guess they're not really much wrestlers, to be honest, but Nate was the one who got the takedown. Conor was able to get a reversal. But I'll give it to Nate because he's been more willing to take fighters down more than Conor has. He's been in around the game a lot longer. He's gone against guys who are bigger than Conor, better wrestlers than Conor. He's been able to defend takedowns against bigger guys than Conor has. He fought Rory McDonald. He went to distance with him. Even though he got his ass kicked, he still went to distance. And he's a stronger guy, you know. Wrestling, I'll give that one to Nate Diaz. But not that much. We'll see how it goes with the wrestling as far as, but that's because of his jiu-jitsu game. It's so good that you kind of just have to give the wrestling to him. Ground game, you just got to give it to Nate Diaz. If you want to go striking, I gave it to Conor just barely. but in the ground game, it's a completely different world. Now, here's where I think what might separate the two if this fight goes past 2 rounds, and that's endurance. Nate Diaz's endurance is pretty damn fucking good. The guy does triathlons with his brother. For crying out loud, he came in 11 days notice into their last fight, and he had more stamina than Conor McGregor, who was having a full camp getting ready for Rafael dos Anjos. And here's the thing with Nate is that he's gone the distance full 5 rounds a couple times. He's fought Benson Henderson for the lightweight title. I think people don't remember that, but he's been a title contender before. And I don't think Conor's ever gone the full 5 rounds. He's either knocked guys out too quickly. Jose Aldo, that went 13 seconds. We all know how that's gone. His other fights have either gone to 3 rounds, but I don't think he's ever gone the full 5 rounds. So if it goes past 3 rounds, Nate's got a huge advantage as far as the stamina goes. And Conor, he gassed out in the first round at going the pace he goes at. At going the pace he goes at, Conor kind of gassed himself out. But even if he calms his pace down, this is a 5-round fight. When you get into the championship fights, if it goes that far, Nate's got a huge advantage because he's been there before. He's been down in the deep waters. Conor hasn't. What else? Okay. Here's the thing. How is Conor's power going to hold up against Nate? And what we saw from the first fight, it looks like Conor has to get ready for a battle here, or he's going to get destroyed, or he's going to get beat pretty easily if it goes past 2 rounds, because I'm not so sure if his power's not going to hold up against Nate. Unless he proves me wrong. Obviously, anyone can get caught, but Nate's a bigger guy. Nate's been punched by powerful guys, and it's hard to see Conor winning this fight in the long run as it goes more. I think in the first 2 rounds, it's going to be an awesome fight. It's going to be amazing. They're going to go back and forth. Conor's going to try and get him out of there like he did in the first round, but he's going to be more calm. He's going to be more efficient. That's how I see him doing it. But I think after the second round, if you get into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, I think Nate, that's when he's going to start to pull away. He's going to use his experience, and on top of that, his ground game. I feel like Nate has more to pull from just because of how great his ground game is. He's got a backup. If his striking doesn't work, he can take down Conor and still submit him. But Conor, if his striking doesn't work, that's pretty much it. What are you going to do? He tried doing a backup by trying to take Nate Diaz down. That went nowhere. It's plan A for Conor, and that's it. Nate has plan A, plan B. And he just has more options. And all this in my mind, you keep thinking it over, and you have to give it to Nate Diaz as a prediction. I think I'll give it to Nate Diaz. TKO round 3. But in my heart, though, I feel like Conor might pull this off. I don't know. There are times for champions where a champion really needs to step up and improve their game, come back stronger than ever. Will Conor be able to do that? Does he have the championship drive to improve his game and prove all the doubters wrong? I chose Conor to win last time because I was completely thrown off by the game plan he had. And if he doesn't switch up his game plan, I don't see him winning. But he has to do that. I don't know if he'll be too stubborn, if he's going to be the same type of guy to take Nate Diaz's head off. But he has to be more calm and collected with his kicks, with his punching, with everything. He has to bring the basics back. He really has to expose Nate Diaz's holes in his striking game, which is his legs. And if he doesn't do that, if he tries to do that what he did in his first fight, that's not going to go well for him. And especially if it goes into the later rounds. And on top of that, Nate Diaz has a full fucking camp now. Last time, that was 11 days. He basically got no training in. The rest was just cutting down and doing all the media bullshit. 11 days, that's nothing. That's not a full camp. People or say, oh, these guys are in full shape when they're getting ready. It shouldn't matter for them. Like, it matters. Getting ready for a full camp, the level of conditioning that it takes to get these guys ready for a fight is nowhere near than the guy who was just like chilling 11 days out on a fucking boat, chilling with his friends. That's a huge feat in itself. With the way Nate's going to prepare, and Nate looks big too. I've seen some photos. I just don't see how Conor can win this if I think about this logically. My heart, though, I kind of want Conor to win because I think it'll be better for the UFC, and I think there'll be hype when he goes back down to fight Jose Aldo. But right now, I have to go with it to Nate Diaz. TKO round 3 or 4. That's my prediction from the Fantard himself. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Give me your thoughts, if anyone wants to, on who they think is going to win between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. Peace, bitches.